Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Friday, September 27th, 2019. And here are your top stories. From actor to handyman, the career of Kevin Crysler, and tips that you can use when starting your own business. Our professional careers ebb and flow, and we learn a lot along the way. Sometimes those lessons are difficult, sometimes they're not. But along the way, we pick up a lot of different skills and we learn what we like to do. Our next guest went through that journey, and now he is the sole proprietor of a franchise known as Mr. Handyman. Please welcome to the program, Mr. Kevin Crysler. Kevin, thanks so much for joining us on the program today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And it looks like it's beautiful weather behind you in Columbia, Maryland, obviously.
It is.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. And, you know, I think you have a really interesting background, and I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind just taking us through your career, because you've been an actor, you've also worked for a not-for-profit, and now you're an entrepreneur.
Correct. Yes, I got bit by the acting bug, I think, when I was in high school. I happened to go to a high school that had a robust performing arts department, and I got involved with that and I liked it. But then parents and school counselors sort of encouraged me to do something more normal. And I ended up getting my BBA in marketing from the University of Georgia, and went and managed a mobile home dealership for about a year or so, and still couldn't get that acting bug out of my system. So I went down to the Academy Theater in Atlanta, Georgia, and became an apprentice actor there. And then I started running out to all of the agencies and got headshots and resumes, and I had to make stuff up on that first resume, and did a lot of theater, learned the craft. I was lucky enough to get into the company at the Academy. And then the auditions, did a lot of extra work and small parts. But I was in Atlanta, Georgia at the time. And Atlanta is a good town for what we used to call industrial films. So we used to make them on video. Everything's quite a bit different now.
Yeah.
And people would come to Atlanta to get video productions done, to get radio commercials done. And also Hollywood came to Georgia. They still do. They come to Georgia particularly for something that was set in the South. They were looking for authentic Georgia accents, except they didn't really know what an authentic Georgia accent sounded like. So you walk into an audition, you just walk in talking like this, because that's what they were looking for. Hey, how y'all doing? What's that word right there? I'm playing Jethro, and, you know, maybe get the part. I did that till I was about 35 years old.
And I mean, it's, you know, we all go through different periods in our life, and I think it's really obviously very amazing. What was it like, you know, you have a family, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but what was it like kind of balancing the financial aspect? You know, what we hear about actors, and we've interviewed some of them on the show, is sometimes it can be a little bit feast or famine. Did you have to have a second career, a second job while you were working with the company?
Yeah, a day job, basically. And I did a lot of different things. I did sound and lighting technology, both in the theater. I would design sound or lighting for a theater production, but then that also gave me the opportunity to go and put a sound system into a nightclub, or a lighting system into a nightclub, or even sound systems in restaurants, etc. So I had that skill and was able to do that. And I had various day jobs. One of them, I ended up, well, I should back up. I started a company selling advertising for theater playbills. Mm-hmm. And that way I was always in contact with the theaters, and I would go out to various advertisers and help them package their advertising up and get it into different playbills. They hated doing one theater, one playbill at a time. So I signed up 10 different theaters for the entire season, and I could go to a major advertiser and get them distributed. You know, I'll take the back cover in 6 different playbills for an entire season, make a big sale like that, take a commission on it. And then that led me to a job with the Atlanta Opera. They said, well, you're a pretty good salesman. We need somebody to come in and get bookings for our education program. all right, I'll come in and I'll call the schools and I'll sign up to come and do a little mini opera in the school auditorium. And I got there, and the next thing they were saying, "Oh, you're our new education director. Why don't you come to the Guild this Friday and give a talk about Bizet?"
So what?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So I became the world's fastest expert in opera because I suddenly realized I was expected to be an education director in a field that I was very new to.
Yeah,
But
but it certainly sounds like obviously you're very entrepreneurial, and we'll get to that in a bit in a later segment. But what I love about your story is that you're constantly retooling and reskilling yourself. So you didn't sit on your laurels, so to speak, and just, I mean, you were bit by the acting bug. You did that for a period of time. You continued to do it for a period of time. You picked up lighting, DP, all the other aspects so that you could, you know, it would pay dividends and you could, you know, make a living while you were looking for acting jobs. And then you made this leap after bundling up advertising into opera. And so now you're in the not-for-profit space. What was that like, going from quote unquote corporate or for-profit into not-for-profit?
well, I had very little for-profit experience, just that mobile home dealership. The selling of the advertising was for nonprofits, and then working for the opera company was nonprofit. But what it did do is it gave me a skill set that when I was about 35 years old, and I'd actually had a few good years as an actor. I'd done a couple of films, some television shows, a lot of theater, etc. But I was kind of tired of what you alluded to before, the hand to mouth existence of
Yeah,
it.
it's hard.
By then I was married, I'd bought a home. So, I mean, I wasn't starving, but there wasn't a lot of financial security. I didn't see the future in always auditioning, always looking for something, always hoping to get that next gig. And so I took a job out in California, running an educational outreach program for an opera company out there. And it was because I had done that same thing in Atlanta for a few years that I had a little bit of a resume. So when I finally got a job at 35 years of age, it didn't have to be an entry level job. It was a senior management position. And then I worked in opera companies for quite a number of years after that, as education outreach, as a director of marketing and communications, as a director of development. In fact, I'm still sort of in the opera business. I'm president of the board of Opus Concert Theater here in Columbia, Maryland, although that's a volunteer position.
So, you know, in terms of working in a not-for-profit, obviously there are challenges and strengths to doing that, right? I mean, it's a great, opera is a wonderful art. So there should be interest in hearing people sing and perform in opera. It fits in line with what you were doing as an actor, so you have some way to relate to that. But what types of challenges existed when you made the leap into the not-for-profit world, quote unquote?
Well, although it was more steady, it's not the best paying profession in the world.
Right.
And I was 35 and hadn't saved a nickel because of, like I said, this hand to mouth existence. I bought a home, so I had that going for me, but no, not any real savings. The opera company in California did have a 401k, and they did do a match. And so I put in 4% of my salary, and they matched that with 3, I think is how it worked.
Right.
And so that finally got me started on a little bit of a savings. And then I did work my way up the ladder and went from one opera company to another with increasing responsibility, et cetera. But it's still, I didn't really feel, having gotten a late start and working in a profession that didn't pay all that well, although I loved it, I didn't feel like I was really on track in terms of finally being able to retire. So I got into my 40s and I ended up being here in Maryland working for the Baltimore Opera, and I had the opportunity to go work for Johns Hopkins. By then I was doing fundraising for the opera company. I was a director of development, and Hopkins raises a lot of money.
Yeah.
They hire a lot of people who are fundraisers, and it's a great place to learn that profession. And the benefits, the retirement plan, et cetera, was considerably better. So I went and worked at Johns Hopkins and became assistant dean of the School of Education. So I finally moved up to kind of like an adult position. I felt like I'd caught up for having not really started working for a living until 35, and finally got a position that I could be proud of, and that paid reasonably well and had good benefits.
Yeah.
I got lured away from that to go to the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian is quite an institution, and it was very attractive. And I got recruited. I had no intention of leaving Hopkins until a recruiter called me one day, and I thought, well, what does it hurt to take a look? But working in the Smithsonian with that stifling bureaucracy as part of the federal government, that's not really me.
Yeah.
I really need a little bit of leeway. I found that just looking back over my life and my career, anytime I had some level of autonomy, anytime I had some control, some responsibility and authority that were commensurate with one another, instead of being in a bureaucracy and being told what to do and how to do it and micromanaged and all that. When I had that autonomy, I did well. And that was what in my gut told me that I could go and start my own business.
Yeah.
Which is quite a leap. And especially when you do it at 53 years of age and you put your entire retirement account and your house on the line and say, I can do this. This will not fail. I'll be okay. So,
yeah, that's a perfect tease. I want to go to commercial break. When we come back, Kevin, I want to talk to you about your next venture and the entrepreneurial spirit that you have to launch your next foray into the for-profit sector. So will you hang around with us for a couple minutes?
Absolutely.
And when we come back, Kevin stays with us to discuss his brand new venture, Mr. Handyman. What were some of those lessons? Stay tuned right here on BRN. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. In our last segment, we learned about basically Kevin's trials and tribulations. He started as an actor, made his way to Washington, D.C. and to Baltimore, worked for an opera company and not-for-profits. He certainly learned what he liked and what he didn't like to do. And what I took away is that he has that entrepreneurial spirit. He wants to do something that provides him with a lot more latitude to make decisions, to get in there. And so now we're going to turn our attention to his newest venture, Mr. Handyman. It's a franchise. Kevin, thanks so much for staying with us. So as you were chatting, you kind of gave us you got us right to this point. I'm glad we teased it out to the audience. Now let's talk about what you're doing today and how you almost mortgage your future to build your new venture.
Right. Okay. Well, working at the Smithsonian didn't work out. I had 3 bosses in 2 years, and I got along with the first 2. But it was time to leave, and I was trying to figure out my next role, and I was 53 years old. And as I said, I had made that determination that if I had some autonomy, I can do well on my own. I believed that I could. I'd had some experience with that in some of the jobs I did. And I have an entrepreneurial bent. I was the kid who always had a lemonade or a Kool-Aid stand or a newspaper route or whatever. Being an actor is very entrepreneurial. Selling your services as a director or as a lighting technician or as a producer is very entrepreneurial. So I decided to do it. But when you do it at 53 and it's your retirement account and your mortgage that's on the line and you have a lot of responsibilities, you need perhaps a little bit of a safety net. So I did what some people may call entrepreneurship with training wheels. I bought a franchise. And in fact, I not only bought into a franchise, I bought one that had been open for 5 years. I bought from an existing owner in an established franchise because a lot of new businesses fail. Yeah. And also, all of us have our strengths, and all of us have our areas where we're not as strong. And in a franchise environment, you have a model, and even more important than having a model and having a home office that supports you to varying degrees and helps you with the marketing and some of the operational support, you have all of the other franchisees. And the franchise that I bought, Mr. Handyman of Anne Arundel and North PG, get my plug in there real quick.
There you go.
Located in Millersville, but we serve Anne Arundel County and the northern half of PG County. Yep. Was underperforming compared to the one that was in Baltimore and the one that was here in Columbia. I actually live in somebody else's territory, and all of the other ones around here. So I decided if they could do it, I could do it. And I bought the business. I followed the model, and all I did in the first couple of years was what I was told to do. This is how you run a handyman business. And I should say we kind of skipped over it, but I had some background in construction, the mobile home business, working in a lighting and sound business. I renovated my first home myself because I didn't have the money to pay somebody else. So I had a general understanding of the field, although I'm not the handyman. I'm the business owner. But you have to know something about construction to do it. But I bought into an existing system. I followed the model, and we doubled the sales almost overnight. The previous owner had done $300,000 in 2009. I took the business over midway through 2010. In 2011, we did $600,000 in sales, and here 9 years later, we're on track this year to do $1.8 million.
Wow, that's amazing. I want to talk a little bit more about Mr. Handyman and the model, but I want to go back to that decision point that you had to launch and to buy a franchise or to be on your own and be that. What were the, if you can share, you don't have to go into too much private details, but were there conversations that you had with your family? This is what I'm thinking about doing. Can you give us a little insight into that?
Yes. Well, I mean, to be honest, I was also looking for a job. When I left the Smithsonian, even before I left, I was searching for something, and it was in the middle of the worst recession in my lifetime, and I was over 50, and the job market was not that strong at that moment. But right from the beginning, I also started investigating franchise activities. I felt like if I was going to start a business, I wanted to do it in the franchising environment for the reasons I spoke of before. And I looked at a lot of them. This one happened to be for sale. It was an existing business for sale. And one of the things that I realized was getting a business started takes some time. I didn't have a lot of time. The only money that I had, I was unemployed for a little over 6 months. I got down to where the only money that I had left available to me was my retirement account. Mm-hmm. And you can start a business with a retirement account. You go to a company like Guidant Financial or Benetrends or something. They help you set up a corporation. The corporation issues stock. You take your 401k, you create a 401k bank account, and now all of your money is in there, but you haven't touched it yet. You haven't broken the law. And then you purchase the stock with that money, and now your money is in your corporate bank account. And voila, You have the capital that you need to move forward. So it seemed doable. And I liked the business model. My wife and I went to Ann Arbor, Michigan, and talked to the franchisor, and we saw a licensed, bonded, uniform, background check technician who shows up on time and the work is guaranteed. My wife said, I would use this service. I've had so many guys come to my house that show up 3 hours late in a t-shirt and jeans and a plain white truck, and I don't know who they are or what they're there for. And this is the kind of service that I would want. I would feel comfortable with these people in my home. So looking at it as something that I would be a customer for, and that realizing my customers would be people who are similar to me. And I felt like I would know how to talk to them, homeowners who need things done around the house and need somebody reliable to do it.
Yeah.
Good quality work at a fair price. Made sense to me.
Yeah.
So it was a leap of faith, but it was a matter of having my wife have confidence in me and me having some confidence in myself, and deciding that this is what I wanted to do. This is what I needed to do. So I put it all on the line. I was all in. Like I said, the retirement account and the house were on the line, and there was no failing. And it was difficult those first couple of years. I was a little bit undercapitalized. Cash flow could be a problem. I was working twice the hours for half the money, but now it's a business that I can truly say I spend most of my time working on the business and not in the business. I got a team of people in the office handling the day-to-day operations. I've got some great technicians out there servicing the customers, and I'm doing things to, obviously the financial management, the personnel management, and the marketing to try and network and expand the business and do things like this to try and get the word out about Mr. Handyman. And I also get time to do things like serve on a couple of boards. I'm the president of the board of Opus Concert Theater. I serve on the board of the Greater Maryland Better Business Bureau, do a little bit of other volunteer work for Maryland Business Roundtable and the Chamber of Commerce, serve on a couple of committees with our franchisor, the marketing committee particularly. So I get a nice work-life balance. And when we're not doing any of those things, a year and a half ago, we bought a place down in Ocean City, and about every month or so, we try and get down there for at least a few days.
Well, it sounds like, Kevin, the entrepreneur you are the entrepreneur. We certainly appreciate you telling your story, sharing it with the audience. I think there's definitely some lessons there. So best of luck with Mr. Handyman. Hope that maybe you'll buy several franchises in the future. Thanks again for joining us in the program, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeffrey.
Well, folks, that wraps up today's episode of BRN AM and also our week of shows. Hope you found it interesting. Hey, have a financial or retirement topic you'd like for us to discuss? Drop us a line. And don't forget, check out today's edition of the Morning Pulse for more news and headlines. And don't forget, tomorrow we release the Weekly Pulse. You can also see the latest news and headlines there. So until Monday, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Waiting here for you to take and drink of. But if you're tired of the same